Welcome to day 5 of Let's Look at the Self yoga series, and today we are going to focus on the spine. Get yourself in a nice comfortable position, whether that be cross-legged, kneeling, or even sitting in a chair to begin with. The spine is made up of small bones called vertebrae, and they are connected together by small discs in between each vertebra. The vertebrae are stacked upon each other to make up a natural curving spine, and they form a canal. Now, this spinal canal protects the spinal cord and all root nerves. You have 33 bones in the spine. Some of us have 34, and this anomaly can be found in the coccygeal region, with some of us having 4 flat fused bones, some 5. Other than that difference, the sacrum has 5 vertebrae, flat, fused together, and the lumbar dorsal region of the spine has 5 vertebrae. The thoracic spine, which is called such because it connects to your thorax here where your rib cage is, that has 12 vertebrae. And then your cervical spine, right at the top here, that leads into the neck, has 7 vertebrae. Now, at the top of the cervical spine, there are 2 vertebrae known as C1 and C2, and these are the atlas and the axis. And they're quite unique in that they have a connection directly into the skull and facilitate turning movements. So the top one, the atlas, is circular, and it's these 2 bones that help the skull, your head, move in as many positions as it is able to, and we will look into those when we start doing some movement with the spine and the head and the neck. Your spine and your skull make up your central axis. They run directly through the centre of you. Your spine originates in your brain, and it exits via a hole in the base of your skull. Now, your spine is what provides communication between your brain and peripheral nerves. Running directly through the centre of you is your central nervous system, and this connects through the brain and the spine and allows all sorts of messaging, communicating around the whole of your body, bringing you this miraculous ability to move, to shape, and to experience. From your central nervous system, you have a peripheral nervous system. This breaks up into a somatic nervous system and an automatic nervous system. Your automatic nervous system then breaks into your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. So it really is ingenious, your spine, and it really needs to be well looked after, because as many of you possibly will know and maybe have experienced, that if your spine is injured, it can affect you physically and mentally. and make life not quite the joyful experience it can be. At the base of your spine, you have what's known as the horse's tail. In Latin, this is called the cauda equina. It's a bundle of spinal nerves, and it swishes about right down in the base. So this part as well, it needs really looking after. And being seated and sedentary in your lifestyle, sitting on the base of your spine too much, can cause unnecessary discomfort to your horse's tail. So perhaps bear that in mind if you find yourself seated for long hours. Get up, stretch the legs and swish your horse's tail. So let's now look at the fabulous potential that we've got for movement with the spine. So the movement of the spine can be forward bending, backward bending, lateral bending, which is from side to side, and rotating. The same with the very upper neck and the head. You have forward movement, backward movement, lateral movement, and rotation. So we're going to do some movements incorporating all of these abilities. Find yourself a comfortable seat now, and you can still practice all of these even if you are in a chair. If you are on your two sit bones and you think that you might like to have a bit more comfort, then bring a cushion to assist. Rise up through the trunk of your body, lift and elevate and create space. It's very important when moving the spine to get this space, especially in those intervertebral discs. You have a little disc and then a vertebra, then another disc and a vertebra. And if you breathe in and will yourself communicate with the spine to create this space, then you'll find that movement will become easier because there's more room, there's space to move into. Let's take a couple of precious moments to connect with the breath. So you might like to close the eyes here. Look at the self inward. Remembering too that all the information imparted here, you can then take and make your own further research. Look at diagrams of your spine. The spinal cord, the spinal canal, the vertebra, the bones that protect the spinal cord. You can look at its position of origin, its insertion at the very top into your skull. And you can look at the very base where the horse's tail, that bundle of nerves, ends. Looking at the self will give you such a greater and deeper understanding of your true nature, which in turn will enable you to better understand all other humans around you. So check the breath. Is it long and full and complete, rather than being shallow, fast, rushed. Taking your time allows for the brain to communicate fully and completely with the rest of your body. And once you begin programming yourself to slowly communicate, and when the messages are delivered with clarity and balance and calm, then from there on those messages can be stored, programmed, and you will be able to move quicker and communicate quicker, but still with that same surety and that same clarity. Slow everything down to begin with. Reprogram yourself so you can move forward with greater potential. Scan the body, check for any pockets of tension or stress you may still be experiencing. Loosen that tension, that stress. Untangle it, unpick it, let it go. Nice relaxed jawline, soft skin on the face. Tune in. And then we will commence with some movements of the spine. You might like to keep the eyes closed. This always gives you a greater connection to the self. Your choice. Eyes open, eyes closed. We're going to begin with forward flexion of the spine, forward bending. And for many, you may have the conditioned response to bending as merely rounding the shoulders, slumping through the torso. Remember, if you do this, your rib cage is just going to crush down into the stomach, and you'll only be able to get so far before you find or think that you have no further movement. And sometimes this will happen because of the joint. You have a joint here in the spine, and you so readily just bend at that part. Whereas now we're actually going to look at the origin of forward flexion, which is right down in the hips and all of the lower spine and the pelvic area, all around here. So from the outset, you want to tune in to the very base of your spine, the coccygeal region, the coccyx. You want to communicate the mind right the way down there via the spine, the spinal cord, and the central nervous system. And you will tell the coccyx to lift up. You'll tell the pelvic area itself to just lift up. The hips, they want to rise up and away from the femur bones. The femur bones are connected into the hip socket by ball and joint. And if you've seen the knuckly end of a bone, you'll know what it looks like. And imagine that knuckly end at the top of your femur there, sitting in to the hip. If you breathe in and create space and elevate and pick that hip up and away from the femur, you'll find that when you hinge forward, there's more range of motion accessible to you. So breathing in, lifting up, you're going to bring pubis up to navel internally. All these internal organs, you can shift them upwards, creating a lot of space down here, so you can then hinge forward. You're going to hinge forward with quite a nice aligned spine. Another breath in, and as you travel up through the spinal cord, you can think of rising up each vertebra, creating space for those intervertebral discs. And then slowly bringing yourself to forward flex. Be aware that as you hinge forward, your buttocks don't rise away. So it's better to be here, practicing on creating space and getting some elevation, rather than thinking, oh, I'm right down here, but you've actually disconnected your sit bones from the ground. Takes time and patience. Your breath is your guide, as you well know by now. So tune into the guide. Be aware if you're really crushing down now, if you can feel that you've rounded the shoulders forward and slumped in the middle. See if you can keep that alignment through the spine. Relaxing the elbows to the ground if you can, and if that's not accessible for you at the moment, you could have a cushion in front of you and just rest the elbows there whilst you retain the forward flexion and continue with looking at the self whilst in the position. You could even have the mind down in the back, lower back here, and think about the flesh and ask it, communicate with it to lift up this lower back flesh, draw it up into mid-back. You could even pull the flesh of your buttocks out and behind you, which will give you that little extra moving forward experience. Think about releasing in the hips. And then pull the tummy in as you restack the vertebra to bring yourself upright once again. Release and relax the shoulders away from the ears, unclench the teeth. So that's the preliminary forward flexion of the spine. Very simple, yet very effective. Let's stay with a primary backward flexion of the spine. So whilst we're here, we can just bring the hands behind us. Take a nice deep breath in and feel this rising sensation up through the front of the body, and bringing us to drop the head back, raise the chin, and really feel that our spine is now curving backwards. Doming the chest, the heart space, up towards the ceiling. And then gently returning to neutral, utilising the stomach to bring you back to that neutral position. It's why it's so important to forever retain the engagement of the abdominals. They are going to help keep the spinal cord in good health and in good strength. If you relax the abdominals and collapse them, let go of them, then you are opening your spine up to the perils of having to bear too much stress and weight in all the movements that you make. So forward flexion, backward flexion. Let's do lateral flexion, side to side. Let's bring the left hand out past our left hip. Let's breathe in, stretch the right arm up. And as you stretch that right arm up, ensure that you're stretching from deep in the right hip, that you're picking the skin up around the torso, or around the right side of the body, and it's all raising up so that you can then flex laterally. And take your time here again. There is no rush. If you find that you're just here and you're thinking, well, I can't go to the side any further, maybe not yet, but if you stay in this position and breathe, create space when you breathe in and surrender when you breathe out, walking those fingers further away from the hip, not just in one session, but in several sessions over several days, weeks, months and years. And ensure that as you increase your lateral flexion, that you are still extending down into that right sit bone, that you haven't let the buttock come away from the floor. Use your skin to help with the position. And then pulling the belly button in to support the spine as you restack those vertebrae to return to your neutral position. You might like to uncross and recross the feet at this point if you've been sitting cross-legged, but remember you're just as easily able to do this position while sitting in a chair, even on a sofa. Just ensure that you have nice support around you within that sofa, maybe some cushions to each side, and maybe a cushion to the back. You could even practice this stretching and rotating of the spine in a kneeling position if you like to kneel. So let's go on the other side. Let's just extend our right hand away from our right hip. Breathe in, stretch up through the left side of your body, all the way from the origin, down in the hip there, and keep the left sit bone really grounded with the mat floor. You've created space, you've lifted, and then you'll move into that space. And stay aware of the self all over. It's a whole body experience. Everything you do in yoga, whichever part of the body you are focusing on, there is still the wider picture, the whole body experience. For whatever position you are taking up, every part of your body is indeed being utilised. Follow the breath, connect with the breath. And every time you return to your central neutral position, you ensure to engage the core to help get you back. Lateral flexion of the spine, side to side. Keep in mind with lateral flexion as well that your shoulders remain aligned with your hips. There'll be a certainty amongst some that you'll drop out of alignment because sometimes the mind and body want to be a bit clever with each other in a sense of being lazy, and as you stretch over, the ego might step in and say, well, I want my arm to be right down on the floor straight away, so to do that I can drop the body forward. But you're not actually receiving the full and complete nutrition of the stretch if you cheat. So it's about alignment as well. When your body is aligned, all of the organs will work to a super optimum level. So keep that in mind too. So much to remember when you practice, but with perseverance and programming, this becomes second nature. Let's now do rotation of the spine, a twist. If you're still happy cross-legged, fine. If you want to change the base foundation of your position, then do so. Go into kneeling, sit on a chair, whatever feels good for you. Let's take the right hand behind our right buttock, and we can straighten that arm to work as a little bit of a rod, a pillar, so that it keeps the trunk nice and upright rather than having a bit of a slump, because when you're seated for a while, the first thing to happen is a slump. So you want to keep this nice upright alignment. Head centrally over the shoulders and head and shoulders directly over the hips and the sit bones. So let's take a nice breath in and rise up, create space, pick up little bits of space between each of the 33 bones of the vertebra. The 33 vertebra of the spine. We're going to bring our left hand outside of our right thigh, and then we're going to commence rotating to the right. Think about turning the spine from the base first, the coccygeal region, the sacral. Now the coccygeal and sacral region of the spine are flat and fused bones, but they can still turn. They can still flex. They just do it as a whole unit. Now after the sacral region, you get into the lumbar, dorsal region of the spine, this base part here. 5 vertebrae there, they can all pick up, they can all allow space so that the discs can turn. Then you get into the thoracic part of the spine, connected to the ribs. You've got 12 ribs, so the thoracic vertebra connect to each of these ribs. Then you get into the cervical spine, 7 bones. And remember the top 2 of these, C1 and C2, the atlas and the axis. And the atlas is circular, stemming from the base of the skull, allows the skull to turn. So you really do have amazing potential to turn all the way round. And whilst in the fullness of the position, connect with the tummy, the rib cage, the breath process, and keep in the space that you've made. Return to your central position. Again, you might like to swap the legs, preparing to go in the opposite direction. Take that neutral moment to readjust, reconnect, look at the self, and then we'll bring our left hand behind our left hip. We'll breathe in and make that foundation position. Bring our right hand outside of our left thigh. Another breath in, and we're pulling pubis to navel, and we're lifting all of those internal organs that are sitting in the pelvic area, which we looked at yesterday. So you've got the base of the spine sits in the pelvic area, and you've got your digestive tract that's in that area, intestines, spleen. Lift everything up, the stomach, and begin to rotate to the left. And take your time so that you can move through the experience of rotating the base, the middle, the top of the spine, the skull. Use the skin on the torso to assist as well. All this flesh down the right side of the body, it doesn't have to be stationary. It can move to the left as well. All the right side of the skin can move round to the belly button. You can even put your hand on your skin and smooth it round. Feel the difference. Tune into the breath, acknowledging that every breath in, you have this sense of lift and elevation, and then as you exhale, you have this experience of surrender. And retaining your correct posture, your alignment, return to centre. Close the eyes, unclench the teeth. A long, deep breath in, being aware of the temperature of the air that's touching on your face, aware of that air entering your nostrils, carrying with it oxygen, which is now moving inside of you to feed you, to regenerate your cells, molecules, atoms. And then a nice, long, full and complete breath out. And feel the difference in yourself now that you have moved the spine in so many ways. And let's keep the eyes closed now as we look at the very uppermost part of the spine, the top of that cervical region, those two unique bones I spoke of earlier, the atlas and the axis, connecting at the base of the skull, allowing it to be pivotal. Breathe the air in through your nostrils, and as you exhale, whether out through the nostrils or the mouth, lower your chin down to your chest. Breathe in, picking the chin up, bringing it back central. Exhale, drop the head back and raise the chin. Breathe in, return the chin to center. Exhale, drop your left ear towards your left shoulder. Breathe in to the center. Exhale, now drop your right ear to your right shoulder. Breathe in to the center. Now turn your chin to the left, bringing the chin to run horizontally in line with the left shoulder. Breathe in, coming back to that central midline, and then exhale, turn your chin to the right, having the chin parallel with the right shoulder. And then return to the center. So you have forward and back motion, lateral motion, side to side motion. Let's take that now and make it circular. So take a deep breath in through the nostrils. Be aware of the air entering the nostrils. And as you exhale, drop the chin down to the chest. Now from here, connecting your mind to the tip of your nose, draw a circle, an imaginary circle. So you are in practice making a circular motion with your head and keeping the eyes closed so that you can really see what your skull is doing at that pivotal junction with the top of your spine. Breathing in, breathing out, looking at the self. Once you've done a couple of processes one way, let's go in the opposite direction. Imagining the tip of your nose to be like a pencil tip, and you are drawing a circle in the air. See if you've tensed up around your shoulders, and if so, relax them. And then bring yourself to return to center once again. The spine, the spinal canal, the spinal cord, your central axis, your skull, your nervous system, your central nervous system. Your spine provides the ability of communication between your brain and your body. Its health and the maintenance thereof, one of the most important aspects of your keep fit routine. And it's simple movements and techniques and awareness that will enable you to fulfill this. Every day, have some forward bends, some backward flexions, some lateral movement, and some twists and rotations. And have a look at some diagrams of the spinal cord. Look at the vertebra. Become aware of your horse's tail, that bunch of nerves swishing around at the very base of your spine. And come to know the development of your spine from your brain. We'll be back tomorrow to start looking at the shoulders and the arms. See you tomorrow.